Morning, everyone. I love how that bell gets attention. Welcome. Good to see everyone joining together. The food has been demolished, and it's great to see. Again, feel free to help polish off what's left. Not that there's a lot left. Wonderful to have you all here this morning, and wonderful for those who might be joining us online. We don't want to forget about you. We appreciate you joining us as well. Before we join in the time of worship, this is a time of worship, and part of that, as we discussed last week, is announcements and community news and things that are happening around the space. So before I have a few things, is there any other community news or information that anyone would like to share with us? I can bring the microphone to you if that's easier. Yep, so John's saying next Sunday, remember, is Communion Sunday, so it's an opportunity to bring non-perishable groceries. We'll have a basket set up the back, and that goes down to what I think is now called Whitehorse Community Information and Support, just behind the Town Hall. So in some ways it's an extension of what we do through programs like the Bakehouse, which shows that we are working in collaboration with other agencies as well. Anything else? All right, I'll share a few of mine. As we said in the record, and as we said in the lead up to this service, this is actually Volunteers Week. So we decided to make this service a little bit focused on the meaning of volunteering, the impact of volunteering, and sort of a celebration of the volunteers in our midst, of which there are very, very many. And I think it's actually wonderful that we're doing it at this service, because we're enjoying a meal which has been put together voluntarily by so many people. But also especially this Sunday, as yesterday, we had about 15 people or so across the church volunteering to spruce this place up and doing an amazing job. The door actually opens a little bit better than it used to. If you feel like there's a bit more light in the building today, you'd be true. There are clean windows and a range of other things. So a real vote of thanks to all of those people who helped yesterday. Many of them are here today again, and I really appreciate it. It has made a real difference, and it's great to see just that spirit of cooperation as we work together on that. Also in the record is just a little reminder about the new small groups approach that we're starting this Tuesday. So this Tuesday, both Explorers and the Bible Chats group will be meeting together in the Village Well, so at number 5, just down the road. And the idea there is that we'll actually be joining together in fellowship, a bit like we are here today, for half an hour or so, probably starting at about 7:15 through to about 7:45. We'll just be gathering and chatting and having a bit of supper. And then at 7:45 we'll be breaking into the 2 different groups in different parts of the building. So one of those is the Explorers group, which is going to be taking the challenge over the coming weeks and months to develop a curriculum for people who are new to the faith or exploring what Christianity is about in a way that we think is comprehensive and meaningful and deep. And Bible Chats is actually, Jeff's going to take up the challenge of leading the Bible Chats or facilitating the Bible Chats group. In the past, that group has been looking at the lectionary reading from the week before, sort of hearing what Jeff had to say at the sermon and then discussing it in that group. We're turning that back to front. So Jeff's going to be there to discuss the passage with that group and get them to actually see what their questions are and see what their thoughts are, and have that then lead into the sermon on Sunday. So if you want a sneak preview of what's going to be talked about on Sunday, or if you want to try and skew Sunday's sermon in a certain direction, get yourself to Bible Chats on a Tuesday night. It'll be a good opportunity to explore that with Jeff. And like I said, everyone is welcome to join in that. Just come along 7:15, 7:30. And we'll explore it together. And also just a quick reminder that we have the church meeting after the service this morning. So literally after the service is done, just if you want to grab another coffee quickly, we'll take a 5-minute pause. If you can't stay, that's fine. But if you want to, the meeting will probably go for, about 45 minutes to an hour at most. And a good opportunity to just touch base with a lot of the things that are happening around the church and within the life of the church as well. For those of you online, also just stay on the YouTube link, and that will just lead into the meeting afterwards. We're not switching to a different Zoom this morning. All right. Thank you. We're going to move on to our reading, which I'll give to Wendy since she's right here.
The readings from Matthew 14, verses 13 to 21. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them and cured their sick. When it was evening, his volunteers came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the volunteers, and the volunteers gave them to the crowds, and all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, Wendy. So being Volunteers Week, this week had me thinking a lot about volunteers as we were in the midst of either the community bakehouse or seeing the choir setting up on Tuesdays or doing Working Bees on yesterday morning. And it had me thinking about volunteers in relation to Jesus' ministry. And it's interesting, a lot of theologians and writers, at least the ones that I looked at when I was looking this up, actually really seem to reject the idea of thinking about the disciples as volunteers. Often that's because they see volunteering as too self-centric, based on what the volunteer wants to do, their time, their energy, their skills. And they also see discipleship as more about someone engaging with Jesus' message and mission, something requiring more commitment, even when the going gets tough, a far more demanding vocation than that of just a mere volunteer. The idea of calling a Christian God's volunteers is something which they tend to reject somewhat. And perhaps that's fair enough. I don't think we'd consider a dedication to Jesus' message and the ongoing indwelling of God's Spirit as simply being a volunteer thing. But as I looked at it, I also thought in rejecting that analogy of disciples as volunteers, in some ways it also undersells the power of volunteering in our own community. But perhaps we need to think about it differently. Not about church or being Christian as volunteers, but rather what volunteering can achieve when working with and through the life of a faith community like ours. In the reading that Wendy shared with us, I made some choice alterations to the text. They're not biblical. That's not what the text says. It doesn't say volunteers. But I wanted to slide them in there because I think it's a helpful parallel, as in many ways the disciples were volunteers. It's difficult because when we think of the disciples, we often see them as extraordinary figures, chosen by Jesus to spread his teachings and build the early church. But at their core, and definitely at the beginning, they were volunteers. They were ordinary individuals, just like you and me, who chose to leave their daily lives, professions, and comforts to follow Jesus. They didn't do this out of obligation, they didn't do it out of personal gain, but out of a deep calling to serve something greater than ourselves. And in this text, we also have the miracle of the loaves and fishes, where a small thing is turned into this massive abundance. And as I was reflecting on that and this theme this morning, I truly believe that we are actually living in this miracle now, through the engagement of volunteers with the life of this church, often people who aren't actually a formal part of this church. We're able to magnify our own impact many, many times over beyond what we could do ourselves. We can take a couple of buildings and a handful of people and turn it into food for hundreds, relationships for countless, opportunities for connection, compassion, and hope for the entire community. I think those are the baskets that we are gathering up after all have been fed. So this morning, this is an opportunity for us to recognise and thank those volunteers who work with us, both those from within our own community, those who volunteer in the life of the church, those who volunteer in the life of the church from outside the church, who've never actually maybe sat here in worship service together, but are committed to sharing in serving their community. And of course, those, many of you who are sitting here, who volunteer in places outside of this church and share that ministry and that compassion and that love beyond this organisation. And of course, it's not just us. We're not the only volunteers in the world here. So I actually wanted to spend a little bit of time in something we haven't done here before, in a bit of a reflection, a bit of a meditation, a bit of a guided meditation on all those volunteers who might cross our paths during the day. Something I never really thought about. So I do encourage you, just get yourself comfortable. You don't have to look at me. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine. If you just want to stare at a dirty bowl, that's okay too. And I'm just going to take you through perhaps what might be something like your day or my day, and reflecting on the different roles that volunteers have in that. So let's work through this together. Picture yourself waking up in the morning. Feel the comfort of your bed and the warmth of your blankets. As you rise and start your day, consider the people who contribute to the comfort and safety of your home. Perhaps someone volunteers in a community program that provides essential services to maintain your neighbourhood. Take a moment to feel gratitude for these unseen hands that help make your morning peaceful. As you prepare breakfast, consider the food on your table. Imagine the volunteers who work at food banks, community gardens, meal programs. Their efforts ensure that families in need receive nourishment and support. Consider their faces, their dedication, their selfless service. You leave your home and begin your commute. Whether you walk or drive, take public transport, who are the volunteers who enhance your journey? Might be crossing guards or walking bus monitors ensuring children's safety. People who participate in neighbourhood watch programs. Your neighbours who clean and beautify public spaces. All contribute to a safer, more enjoyable environment. Send them a thank you for their vigilance and care. As you arrive at work or school, think of the volunteers who enrich these spaces. Mentors, tutors, aides, volunteers who assist in classrooms or provide career guidance. They give their time and experience to foster learning and growth. Reflect for a moment where a volunteer may have impacted your education or your professional journey. Hold that memory and feel your gratitude for their support. Now imagine your lunch break. Perhaps you wander to a local park, community centre, and there volunteers maintain these spaces, organise activities, run programs that offer relaxation, enjoyment and connection. Perhaps picture a volunteer leading a community Tai Chi class or organising a local art fair. Appreciate their efforts to create spaces where you can recharge and connect with others. As your day continues, think about the times where you might need help. Volunteers at hospitals, clinics and helplines who provide comfort and assistance. Reflect on the compassionate care from a volunteer during a difficult moment. or maybe simply the reassuring presence of someone willing to listen. Feel your gratitude for their kindness and empathy. As your day winds down and you return home, consider the community events or support groups you might attend in the evening. Often volunteers lead these groups, offering fellowship, support, education and skills. Think of that time when you felt uplifted by a community event or being a part of such a group. Appreciate the dedication of those who facilitate these connections. And finally, as you prepare for bed at the end of the day, think about those volunteers who make night shelters available for those without a home, those who operate crisis lines. Imagine the volunteers who are awake while you are asleep, ensuring the safety and well-being of others. We are surrounded by volunteers who touch every aspect of our lives, often without us even realising it. Let's carry this awareness and gratitude into our days, inspired to contribute and uplift others in return. So let's pray together. Lord, bless all volunteers with the strength and perseverance they need to continue their good works. Fill their hearts with joy. Sorry, I got to the prayer that I'm supposed to do later on, so ignore that you heard those two lines. We'll get to that later. But thank you for joining me in that reflection. We'll pray for... Oh, no. Hang on. That's right. Sorry, my notes are out of order. All good. Thank you for joining me on that little journey. Sorry for the abrupt ending there. As we've gone through that, I hope it's been an opportunity for you to also consider the different volunteer roles that you are involved in as well. And what we're going to do now, while you might grab a little bit more to eat or another cup of coffee, is... Ethan, can you flick over to that other... not that one. I am busy. That's another thing coming up later. Just hop out of Proclaiming into Chrome. On the tables, you'll see there's a QR code. And I sent out a form earlier, a little survey earlier in the week as an opportunity to explore the different things that we are all involved in. It would be a good opportunity live to actually see what we all do, how we volunteer in this life of the church, but also how we volunteer in places outside here. There are many people, and I've already had some sneaky conversations with people this morning who talked about the things they do, but said, do not talk about it. So there's a lot of people who obviously like volunteering, but don't want to make a big noise about it. And that's amazing. So you don't have to offer anything you don't want to, but I'd love to get a sense of the different things we're all doing. And this doesn't have to be I serve on this board or I attend this formal program. It could be I babysit for my grandkids, twice a week. Or, I help my neighbour with her shopping. Anything that you're doing in a voluntary capacity, we'd love to hear about. So you can use that little code up the top, go to menti.com and use that code, or use the QR codes on the table. And just while we have another cup of coffee, feel free to add. And we'll see this come alive with more people's contributions. And feel free to have a conversation with the people around you. If someone's saying, I don't volunteer with very much, give them a bit of an interrogation. I reckon they do, and find out. So let's have a conversation about how we volunteer, and let's, as we're doing that, contribute to that, and then we'll come back and close in prayer in about 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks. Hey everyone, thanks for that. I know it's very small to see. Even I have to sort of get up here and squint. But there's a lot happening there. We might try and make this available afterwards. I might send it round. But there's some great things happening. There's, pastoral care, helping to teach English, the playgroup, EduBiz International, hospitality, A Roadshow Australia, I hope I pronounced that right, the bakehouse, gardening, tutoring, archiving, babysitting, whoa, it's all moved. Different boards, cleaning, there's a lot of that yesterday, picking up for the bakehouse, Symbiosis, Standards Australia. Wonderful to see the diversity. It's not all just helping the poor stuff, it's other things which require volunteers too. We often think volunteers are just about helping poor or disadvantaged, and a lot of it is, but there's some volunteer roles required at every part of the world. Nursing homes, help where needed. I do like that. Feel free to continue to contribute to that. That will continue to update, and I will make sure we save a copy of that. It's wonderful to get a sense of the spectrum of things that people are involved in. Another way that we volunteer is, of course, in the volunteering of our offerings, of our resources. So Shawar, I think there's got a couple of bags up the front. Shawar is going to collect our offering, and then we'll join in prayer for volunteers, which will be the final part of the service. I will also add, while Shawar is collecting the offering, we did extend an invitation to all of our volunteers in our community programs to be involved today. Obviously, the hard part about being a volunteer is then you ask your volunteers to come along to another thing, which is more volunteering for them. So it's really hard to get along, but they recognise and appreciate the value that we place on them. And in a weird way, they also appreciate the opportunity that we've given them to volunteer to their community. So it's wonderful that it's a two-way connection. So it's delightful to be continuing to be able to do that. Thank you. Oh. Thanks, Shawar. All right, now let's join in prayer. Some words will be familiar. Loving and gracious God, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude for the countless volunteers who selflessly give their time, energy, and love to serve others. We thank you for their dedication, their compassion, and their unwavering commitment to making our world a better place, whatever form that takes. We lift up in thanksgiving the volunteers within our church who work tirelessly to support our ministries, who foster a welcoming, nurturing environment for all who come through our doors. Bless those who lead our worship, those who contribute to our music, visit the sick, pick up a paintbrush or a shovel, or extend a helping hand to those in need. Their service reflects your love and grace. We give thanks for the community volunteers who partner with us in serving those beyond our walls. Together, we strive to feed the hungry, clothe the needy, shelter the homeless, and offer help to those in need. Bless these partnerships, these friendships, and the unity and encouragement we find in working towards common goals of compassion and justice. We extend our gratitude to the many people who volunteer in so many other places, services, roles, and organisations, formal and informal, big and small. From mentors and tutors to coaches and caregivers, from those who organise community events to those who offer a listening ear and a kind word, Each act of service, no matter how small, is a reflection of your love in action. We are especially mindful of those volunteers whose efforts go unseen and unrecognised, yet whose impact is profound. Their quiet acts of kindness and service often provide the foundation upon which our communities stand. Lord, bless all volunteers with the strength and perseverance they need to continue their good works. Fill their hearts with joy and fulfilment, knowing that their efforts are never in vain, but a testament to the love and compassion that we can see in Jesus Christ. May they feel appreciated and valued, and may their example inspire others to step forward in service. We ask that you guide and protect all who give of themselves, that their spirits be uplifted, their burdens lightened, and their hearts encouraged. And as we express our gratitude for their generosity, help us to find our own ways to serve, following their example and your call to love one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thank you for joining us this morning as we consider, and I hope that's been, if you're a volunteer, I hope you feel recognised and appreciated, and that you might this week, even though Volunteers Week is officially over, you can still go out and thank a volunteer next week. I don't think that'll be the bad thing to do. Service is officially over, but we are now going to continue to our church meeting. So we'll probably take maybe 5 minutes to get ourselves sorted. Take that opportunity to take a little break, get another cup of coffee, glass of water, or whatever else you need, and then we'll continue the church service in about 5 minutes. For those of you online, just hang tight. We'll be carrying on in about 5 minutes or so. Thank you.
Eddie, just. Yes, this is a formal. I know how to. All right, if I could get everyone to start moving back down to the front as we start the meeting. Yeah. So welcome to everyone who has decided to stay for the meeting. There is an attendance and apology sheet floating around. Make sure there is one attendance and one apologies. So don't write your name on the apologies if you are on attendance. Hopefully that gets all. It's down the front, but yeah, we will get that sorted if you need that. Yeah, let's just say that before you go, put your name on the attendance sheet. We'll just leave it at that. So let's just come together on a short prayer as we have gathered after this meal. Dear God, we thank you for everyone gathered here today and ask that you surround us with your presence as we come together to discuss the life of this church. Thank you for loving each of us and calling us to walk with you. Let your spirit be among us now and always. Amen. Our first item on the agenda is confirmation of the previous minutes, which have been provided in that large document sent during the week, and there are some printed copies currently on the tables. There's been one point brought to me already that the representatives we agreed for the for the covenant that the members are Susan, Michelle, Graham and John in the minutes, but it should be Keith instead of Graham. That's a change that already has been brought up. Are there any other issues from the last meetings that would be like to be brought up now? None? Okay, then can I get someone to move that we accept the minutes and someone to second it? Eddie to move. Lorraine to second. Can I get a show of hands that we accept the minutes? That's pretty much an all approved. Okay, then the next part we'll be going to is reports. Teresa, could I get you to come up and give the financial reports, which are also on that large set of documents, and there are some on the printed, at the back of the printed documents as well.
Okay, the report is fairly good because we're looking now see how the budget is tracking for the year, and because we're near at the end of the financial year, and our offering's about on budget. Expenditure is down a bit, but there's quite a few maintenance expenses that might still come in before the end of the financial year. Next year and beyond, we are anticipating that we'll have a lot more maintenance expenditure, so we're going to provide make a provision for large maintenance projects to help us keep on track there. Our hire income's going quite well, and the extra hires that Eddie gets going are helping to keep us above budget. Increase in interest rates has also helped with the term deposits, bringing in a bit extra. Extra expenses are, of course, wages and utilities in particular. And that's about it, I think. Any questions on anything? Thank you.
Then can I get someone to move that we accept the financial reports? John, and someone to second. Michelle, can I get some hands up for approval? Yeah. So yes, the financial report is accepted, and then I'm going to invite Eddie up to just give a general church life.
I haven't spoken enough today. I just wanted to give a very brief overview. Ethan, are we back on Proclaim? Great. In lieu of a report, I really wanted to just show one image, which some of you saw a sneak preview of before. That's my diary. Not my diary, and I don't expect you to read it, but that's actually the what we essentially call the room booking calendar for the church. There's a lot that goes on here during the week, and I just wanted to go through it just to let you guys. I know some of you who, a lot of us, only come here on a Sunday or a couple of times a week. We may not be aware of the vast majority of things that are happening in the church's space and with the church's cooperation throughout the week. So let me walk you through a week. 3 mornings a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday mornings, we have the Renew program run by the Avenue Neighbourhood House upstairs at the Village Well, working with a bunch of young people who are disengaged from school. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday mornings. We've got the community choir here on a Tuesday morning. Monday afternoon, we've got art classes happening in the Village Well, followed by table tennis upstairs. In a couple of weeks' time, we're actually going to have someone who's going to be running a new program supporting people with autism to build their confidence through playing role-playing games, doing that in the quiet room in the barn. We've got a number of disability groups who meet here on, how frequently? Tuesday afternoons, Wednesday mornings, Thursday mornings, either doing art with people with disabilities, music with people with disabilities. We've got the English class, of course, takes place on a Thursday morning, the Bakehouse on a Thursday. The Thursdays are crazy here. We have, I actually don't know where I can sit on a Thursday because we've got music programs running on a Thursday morning, English class here, art classes upstairs. I come and hide in the church usually because it's the quietest place. Several evenings a week, there's also Narcotics Anonymous groups who meet upstairs. They've been with the church for, I think, like 20 plus years, and they're still here, meeting several times during the week. We've got Box Hill Ballet still with us after all these years on a Thursday evening, using the barn for rehearsals. We've got a new Toastmasters group who's been with us in the Village Well Thursday evenings, the first bilingual Toastmasters group in Victoria, I believe. More art classes on a Saturday, more table tennis on a Friday. There's about to be more table tennis on a Tuesday night as well. So that's just exploding. And then, of course, we get to Sunday, which feels like a relatively normal day compared to everything else. And I guess the reason I'm showing you this is not to sort of say, wow, look at all the amazing stuff we're doing, but just to sort of show the level of engagement we're having with different groups in the community. A lot of this is just people who come and pay and leave, and that's totally okay. That contributes to the slightly healthier financial situation that we're in at the moment, is that we're getting some good revenue. But a lot of them are good opportunities to actually engage with people. We don't know where it will go, but there's opportunities there and connections to be made. One that is about to start as well, and we're very excited about, is on Wednesdays, that big yellow block on a Wednesday. Some of you will know about Youth Connections. They're Whitehorse Council's youth services that for, I think, 20 years have been located over in Box Hill Central, providing drop-in services for young people after school, like from 2 to 5. Well, with all the redevelopment, their tenancy ended there. So we reached out to them and said, can we work together? So they're going to be with us at this stage on Wednesday afternoons, possibly going to 2 afternoons a week, where they will be upstairs at the Village Well, providing a drop-in centre for young people. We don't have to staff it, we don't have to man it, it looks after itself, but there's connections there for us to get involved with, and they're really excited to see what might be possible about how we can engage with young people there. Their reference group, they've got a couple of youth reference groups that are going to be meeting in the barn as well. So there's some great opportunities in just having people in the space, lets people know what's happening here and how we can get involved. So yeah, that's sort of my report that I wanted to give, is just give you a sense of what's going on in the life of the church. John. Oh, we do. There it is, Tuesday night. Thanks for pointing that. Yeah, Friends of Dismas. So that's essentially a church service for people who have left prison and for complex reasons often can't attend normal church services. So they're there on a Tuesday night as well. So another thing, thanks for reminding me about that, John. What have I missed? Oh, even things like, we've got first aid groups that come and use the barn. They pay very well. It's never going to be a partnership, but it pays very well and it keeps us afloat. So be encouraged by what's happening in the life of your church. There's a lot of really exciting stuff happening. It does take a lot of work to keep it going. It does put wear and tear on our buildings, which is why things like working bees and maintenance budgets are so important. But we're achieving a lot through the connections that we have. Any questions or other things people want to find out about? Good question. Depends on the nature of the event. Pretty much all of those are not covered by ours, they're covered by their own. Essentially, the only events that we cover are what they call private family events. So if someone wants to have a 10th birthday party here, we cover it, but everything else they have to have their own insurance.
Okay, those are the reports. So now we move on to the listed matters for discussion, which starts off with the covenant. So at the last meeting, we, as stated earlier, we brought together and agreed on a group to go and look at and update our church covenant. That is on page 5 is the new updated covenant. I will read it out as well, just because I think it's a good thing. No, I will read it out, and maybe next week we could read it out together as a church. Would be a really, really good activity. So this is what the 4 people in that group came together and brought back to us. We'd just also like to thank Susan, Michelle, Keith, and John for their work on that. And this is what they've submitted. So it starts off with an introduction, which is not part of what we would say as a church covenant, but just how we would introduce this piece. And it is introduced as, this is not a creed or a statement that all that we believe. Baptists have always been wary of such statements because they have often been used in the past to divide rather than unite. Rather, this is a covenant, an agreement with God and each other as to what is most important for us and what it is that we should be doing about it. As with each of our worship services, it is undergirded by the acknowledgement that God has been in this land we now inhabit for aeons, and that the earliest inhabitants never ceded their territory to the later settlers and still suffer greatly as a consequence. We honor their truth-telling and respect them and their elders and seek to work with them to overcome the ongoing injustice of their situation. The covenant, which we would be reading as a whole congregation, would be, as part of the creation formed in the image of God, we foster a sense of awe at the world we inhabit, care for it as we are able, and participate in its renewal. With God's grace, we celebrate our diversity, our journeys to and in faith, and our ways of sharing our experiences of God's love. God has also revealed to us in the life and teachings of Jesus. We are called to follow him together by living his life-affirming values of love, mercy, forgiveness, grace, justice, peace, and respect for all creation. We minister unconditionally, being hospitable and compassionate in all our activities and relationships. As we are given the Spirit to guide our way, we seek her wisdom to discern God's call upon our lives. And we encourage in each other the fruit and the gifts of the Spirit. We commit ourselves to prayer, sensitivity to the Spirit's promptings, and discipline in our spiritual journey, acting upon our discoveries as we deepen our faith. We are called as a congregation to love and serve each other and the wider community, committing to meet regularly in worship and honest fellowship with one another, creating safe places for all. We understand our place amongst all those who seek to worship God and respect the different ways this is expressed. So that is the new covenant. Can I get someone to move that we accept this as our new covenant? Tiang, can I get someone to second? Eddie, can I get a set of hands for all who agree we should accept this as our new covenant? Okay, so that is moved to be accepted. Then the next section, now that we've done the new covenant, we can now move on to getting the Constitution back into shape. So this is something that we should be doing a renewal every 3 or 5 years, and it's been a long time since we've done this. So similar to how we worked out with the covenant last meeting, this meeting will just be a time to choose and have volunteers from the congregation to meet together and discuss and produce a new constitution for the church. It will be mostly based on the one produced in 2021. Oh, so it hasn't been that long. So yeah, we're on track. We've done well. We're on track to. Yeah, it was some minor amendments. So just to look through that again. So there is already. So as already been approached, Lorraine, Andy, and Graham. But are there any other volunteers who would be interested in getting together and working on this constitution? Opening it up to anyone who would like to volunteer. Okay, so for those, for the three mentioned, Andy, Lorraine, and Graham, could I get someone to move that we agree for them to be a part of a working group on the Constitution? Tiang to move, and someone to second. Jean to second. And then a show of hands for all who agree that that should move forward. Okay, so it may be next meeting or the meeting afterwards where we come with a more updated constitution to bring to the church. So that was all the long documents to be read, and then the next section is on an outreach worker, and I'm going to hand that over to Jeff to discuss.
Good morning, everyone. We've seen a selection of ministries and programs that we have in our facilities, and we're not involved necessarily in all of those, but there are many that come under the umbrella of the Box Hill Baptist Church. And through these ministries and the Village Well ministries, we come in contact with hundreds of people every week. For instance, there's always a bit of a tally at the bakehouse. Last Thursday there were 108 people. Many of these are Mandarin speakers. Google Translate can help a little bit, but you can only get so far if you don't have the language and if Mandarin speakers don't have much English. So this is a challenge that we are facing in many of our ministries, and today our deacons are proposing that we set aside a 3-month period when we are intentional as a church to discover how we can work through these cultural and language challenges. As part of this proposal, we are recommending that we employ a Chinese Australian person for 1 day a week over this 3-month period to help us to work on this, to find a long-term solution as to how we might address this cultural and language challenge. The person that we have in mind, her name is Wei Min Zhang. Have we got a photo of her, Ethan? Some of you might recognise her because she has been to Box Hill. She's visited at the Thursday Bakehouse. She's also attended the Bible study that was led last year by Keith and Lynn. Wei Min used to be a pastor at the Northcote Baptist Church, and she was living at Epping. But more recently, she's just started as one of the pastors at the Borwin Baptist Church, which, according to Google Maps, is only 3 kilometres just up the road. Her role there is with young adults, and she's employed by them for 10 hours a week. She's also finishing her ordination study. She's been studying at Whitley College. She's highly regarded by people like Mi Wan. But in addition to that, she's a mother to 3 children. Have we got another photo there of Wei Min, her husband Pham, who's Vietnamese, and the 3 children. In this 3-month period, we would want to introduce her to the church, and we would want to work out a schedule whereby Wei Min would be able to attend our different ministries, whether we're thinking about that table tennis on the Monday night, or whether it's a play group on the Friday morning, or the bakehouse. Her role would be to help to interpret language, to foster pastoral care, and to enable us to discover an effective long-term solution to this ministry challenge. Can we afford this? Our treasurer at our last deacons meeting indicated that the church finances are buoyant and able to sustain paying waymen 1 day a week at a pastor's stipend. And Eddie has also been exploring and applying for a community grant that might help fund an inclusion project like this. It would be easy to sort of dump the challenge on a person, but the proposal is intentionally focused on us as a church. We don't want to just put everything onto some hotshot consultant, but it's more the emphasis that we are the ones that have a challenge, and we need to learn and discover how we can overcome this language and cultural barrier, and we're asking Waymen to work with us to find some good solutions. When would this 3-month period begin? We're not sure, but it would be by mutual agreement between Waymen and the deacons. At the end of the 3-month period, there could be a recommendation that we employ someone like Waymen, someone who might help us bridge the cultures, someone who might help us care for Mandarin-speaking people, someone who might help connect us together. But there's no expectation upon Waymen to continue in a role, and there's no expectation on the church to offer her a role. So on behalf of the deacons, I want to propose that the Box Hill Baptist Church undertake a 3-month period to be intentional about exploring how best we can address this cultural and language challenge, that we ask Wayman Zhang to be a cultural connector and a consultant to help us to explore this challenge at Box Hill on a trial basis for a period of 3 months. Paid 1 day a week according to the BUV recommended stipend, and that the trial period of appointment and exploration might commence at a suitable date to be decided by mutual agreement. So on behalf of the deacons, I'm happy to move that motion. There's a seconder here. So look, there might be questions that you've got, and I or some of the deacons might be able to answer those. How many people know Waymen or have seen her at... there's quite a few. Grace, you know her? Yeah.
Okay, so we have Jeff to move. I mean, now that I'm speaking and I probably won't second, can we have someone to second? We have Keith to second. Can I get a raise of hands for all who agree? Okay, so motion passed. Then the next part of the agenda is membership, which I'll hand to Eddie again.
Thanks, Showa. We're delighted to actually bring a couple of people's recommendations for membership this morning. Just wonderful to be able to do. We've had a bit of a resurgence in membership over the past few years, and I was shocked when I had to do our annual stats and realised we're above 50 members. 50 active, real members, not just the people who were still on the roll from 10 years ago. These are real people who exist in our place. And that's actually really quite significant, especially when you think of where we were 3 or 4 years ago, where our numbers were sort of hovering down around the 30 mark. So that's significant. So I appreciate that. And also appreciate, the effort that Jess put into letting people understand what's involved in being a member of a Baptist church and the people who've come forward around that. We've got a couple, so I'm delighted to be able to bring Hazel Tan as recommendation for membership. It feels a bit weird recommending Hazel because Hazel's been with us for a very, very long time. I actually hoped Hazel would stay, but she's so shy she's shot off. So I can speak freely about Hazel. But she's been with us for a very long time, longer than even Michelle and our family. So she was here when we arrived. So it feels weird to be introducing someone who precedes me. But it's delightful to put this forward. Many of you will know Hazel, Bernard and Miko very, very well. So much of this I think, feels like it's just for show. As I think we'd all agree what a wonderful person she is and what a wonderful family they are, and the contribution that she has made and will continue to make. We sat down and had a chat, Michelle and I sat down and had a chat with Hazel, and just as a bit of a summary for those who may not know her as well, Hazel was born and grew up in Singapore, attending a Presbyterian church there, I believe from the age of 10. At the age of 14, she started attending a Chinese church in Singapore, which she attended for about 6 years and was baptised there. After meeting Bernard, she then attended a Methodist church, so she's worked her way around the denominations, before getting married to Bernard and then migrating to Australia in 2003. She attended Box Hill Baptist Church for a number of years, getting very actively involved in teaching and kids' church in those days. And has also spent some years attending New Hope, where she played a valuable role around welcome and hospitality, so she was active volunteering there. And then kind of came back in a way a few years ago to support the Bethel Chinese Church's trial here for a couple of years. So her and Miko were playing, and Bernard were all playing a very strong supporting role while that congregation was giving it a go. And now it's delightful to see Hazel back at Box Hill Baptist Church, and with Miko also being involved. I know we've seen Miko behind the piano a bit, and Hazel actively involved in the life of the church, both things like the bakehouse and other supportive roles as well. And I've also, just even the conversations that I've had with Hazel and in the interviews with her, really appreciated her very keen insight, very good questions. She's one of those who do ask the question that you sort of go, why didn't someone ask that before? She's very analytical, I think. It's probably her professional upbringing, but very analytical in a really positive way. Talking to Hazel, she valued the importance of community in loving each other and building this place of trust. And something she's also valued greatly as someone being involved in the Bible Study Fellowship, which she spoke about and had a huge amount of value for, even though it's operating online. She loves the fact that it's a place of trust and love for her. And she also showed a deep commitment to actually biblical study and wanting to understand and communicate that as well. So it's my pleasure to recommend Hazel Tan as a member of the church. I'm happy to be the one to motion for that. Seconder, John, all in favour? Thank you. And we'll be welcoming Hazel in at the next Sunday at the communion service. And now I'll hand us back to John.
Thanks, Eddie. Well, it was my pleasure and Pat's pleasure to welcome Gracia to our home and to share a significant amount of time together. I can't recall all the detail, you'll have to forgive. I believe it's part of a syndrome called AGE. But however, we did have a good conversation where she shared quite a bit of her journey. And her journey is one distinguished by what I call grace. Her name is Gracia. Does it mean grace? It does. Well, her lifestyle is one of grace, and it has been in different contexts. I can't remember them all, but there's several. Different contexts where she's been a person with the name Gracia, but a person of grace. Now, if you want to read a good book, it's Julia Baird's book, The Bright Side, where she talks about grace and all those people who commit acts of grace. It's a gift that they give unconditionally. And Marcia is one of those people who gives unconditionally. So I and Pat are delighted to share time with her. Very personal time, it's in a few moments, but nevertheless a time where we shared soul with soul. And she has a soul, she has a heart, and she's a woman of grace. So I highly recommend her to participate in the life of this church. Her original Christian tradition was the Roman Catholic tradition, and that was a part of her life, and she's now in her faith journey moved to be involved here in different activities. They're acts of grace. She just does it. So welcome, Gracia, and I invite you all to make her welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So John is moving the motion. Do we have a seconder? Keith got his hand up first. There were a few fighting for that. So show of hands who agrees. There we go. All right. Thank you. That's the membership side of things done.
Okay, so that brings us now to the end of the meeting. So I'll close us all in prayer. Lord, thank you for your guidance, allowing us to lead our church to being a space where your presence is felt and celebrated. Be with us as we all take the Spirit within us. Be with us all as we take the Spirit within us and bring your love and peace into the world during this coming week. Amen. Okay, you're all dismissed. Unless you're helping to clean up. Actually, don't forget to put your name on the attendance list if you have not already.